Hi potty plant people, thank you very much for returning to my channel. Today I want to talk about something that has been a real game changer for me, and that is self-watering pots. About 6 months ago, when I first started my journey proper with houseplants, I say proper because I've loved houseplants. I've had houseplants for many years, most of my adult life. But I seriously went into a business of propagating and selling and buying and selling plants. And I thought I should get knowledgeable about things. And the biggest hurdle for me was keeping on top of the watering of the 200 plus plants that I had going at any one time. And I found that self-watering pots were the solution to many problems. Now, I'm not saying that they are the be all and end all. You get a self-watering plot and they are right for all plants of all kinds and what have you. There are certain plants that don't fare well really in a self-watering setup, and I will go through those in a minute. But a lot of house plants, including the ones behind me here, not only love to be in house plants in self-watering pots, but they actually thrive in it because of that consistent moisture that a self-watering pot provides them. So without further ado, let's get into the self-watering pots that I have. Now, the one particular plant that really loves a self-watering setup is a pothos, and I've got a few here. So I've got the philodendron micans, and I've got a golden pothos here, which I'll show you now. So I've actually just put water in here. So this is a golden pothos, and it's, or devil's ivy, I think it's a common name. Now this is quite a hardy plant anyway, but I noticed that if it's not consistently moist and if you don't keep on top of it, it does get crispy edges and you get like little brown marks on the leaves. So although it's tough and although it'll grow sufficiently well for you, if you're able to keep the moisture in the soil consistent, then it will just stop those crispy brown edges. So that is the golden pothos. Another one here. Now, as you can see, this one has a deep water reservoir. So I like this particularly for Scindapsus. I like it for spider plants. I have a spider plant here, which I'll show you in a minute. And this is not called Scindapsus anymore. It's called is it a philodendron or epipremnum? Anyway, I'd struggle with the two because they're so similar, and they're all under the pothos family, and their names have been changed over the last few years from epipremnum to philodendron and back, and so this was called Scindapsus for a long time, but it's the Saturn pothos. And you can see that this one likewise is just loving the self-watering setup. So what happens is you put your soil in the top here directly into the pot, and then through these wicking cords it soaks up the moisture that you put in the bottom. So there is actually no need to water at the top. You just fill up the reservoir. When you see this is empty, you can touch it, fill it up again. For me, though, to err on the side of caution so that I'm not overwatering, I do just feel if the top of the soil is damp, then I don't bother filling it up, which is why this is dry at the moment. But I'll keep an eye on it. In the next day or two, I will then fill it up so that this keeps growing lush and beautiful like it is now. And last but no means least, this is a a pothos that I always have success with in a self-watering setup. And it's this neon, epipremnum neon. And it is a softer, more delicate leaf than the devil's ivy. It's also certainly not as firm and fleshy as the satin pothos that I showed you before. So consequently, this one really thrives in a self-watering setup. So I tend to keep an eye on this. Now, this I've put into a self-watering pot that has quite a shallow reservoir. Probably wasn't the right choice, but for me, it works fine because I check them all regularly anyway. And all I do is I just fill the top of the soil. And if the top of the soil is dry, I fill that up. And I just fill in a bottle with water and I just squirt it into that little spout over there. I'm sure you can see it there. And it just keeps wicking up the water. So sometimes if I'm in a rush, I will just top up the water reservoir with this one. I just top it up because this is always likes the soil to be consistently moist. Now, the beauty of a self-watering pot is that it does do exactly that. It moistens the soil. It doesn't over-wet the soil. So with plants that are growing in sort of traditionally in jungle environments where there's a lot of consistent rain that trickles down and keeps that soil nice and moist, these love that because in their natural environment the soil doesn't really dry out that much. So yeah, and it's got one crispy leaf. I think it's because the radiator is quite close here, but other than that, this plant is looking so lush with its very typical neon yellow leaves, just gorgeous. And I've got a few of these around the house because it's so successful in the self-watering setup. So moving on to other plants that can tend to be a little bit on the fussy side. Now, aglaonema, a broad range of plants, and typically known as a Chinese evergreen. Now, Chinese evergreen are very hardy on the whole. They tolerate low light levels. They don't mind drying out a little bit before watering. In fact, they prefer it. But there are certain varieties that I've noticed that prefer it if it's consistently moist. And this is one of them. This one's called Red Fire. Now, I've put it in this clear self-watering pot because I can then see the soil. So like I say, they don't mind drying out a little bit, but they don't like the soil to be too wet. So they are a little bit of a diva, but absolutely gorgeous. So this Red Fire, and I've got a few of them around the house because I just love them so much, with this gorgeous variation. So they've got this deep scarlet red that runs around the edge of the leaves and along the center vein there. I'm sure you can see it there. And this pot allows me to see the water reservoir. It also allows me to see the soil. So if the soil is moist to the touch, like this is a little bit at the moment, or it has condensation in the soil, then I know it doesn't really need water, which is why I've not filled this up. But it allows me to look at the soil, feel the plant, see the reservoir, and everything is what's it. I can also, if ever this gets root bound or the roots get too much, I'll be able to notice it very quickly and then know that it's time to pot on. So I'm a big fan of the clear self-watering nursery pots because of that reason. You can learn the rhythms of your plant and you know when to water it. So that is my aglaonema Red Fire. Another aglaonema that loves a self-watering setup is this one. So this is called Red Joy. It's actually a little bit dusty. I must give them a wipe. But this is my Red Joy. Absolutely gorgeous. I just love this fuchsia pink that's in the leaves. So this one, the soil is actually really, really dry on top. Really dry. You can see. It's like sand. But I know that the roots are getting enough water because there's water in the reservoir and the wick is the wicking cord is doing its job. So it's taking the water where it needs to be, which is at the roots. This plant is looking happy, it's plump and what have you. So I know that it doesn't water. Now, in this case, this particular aglaonema I've noticed actually doesn't like its feet wet. It doesn't like its feet wet at all. It doesn't like being wet at the base. It likes the moisture where the roots are, which is typical in a lot of plants. So that's another reason why a self-watering pot is really a good investment. Now another plant, and I've got to be careful here because I've got this grow light above it. Let me just unhook that there. So this is tradescantia purple pallida. Let me get there. So this is tradescantia purple pallida. I've just got to be careful because the grow light's plugged in there. And this also, likewise, I find that a lot of tradescantia, because they're fast-growing plant, very fast-growing, they like to drink. They're very thirsty. So a self-watering pot in this case is really a must-have. Because if you don't keep it moist, you get these horrible crispy leaves. Another thing you might want to do with tradescantia is regularly prune it. So you want to cut a bit, and then if you remove the bottom leaves, you can stick it in the same soil. And because it's consistently moist, it will just root and it'll grow again. Now, the tradescantia, my friends in South Africa will laugh because it's so common there. In South Africa, especially in the Natal coast, in those more tropical climates, there down on the KwaZulu-Natal coast, tradescantia grows like a weed. And you anywhere, even under the shade of a tree, if you just plant it there and you just stick a few pieces in, before you know it, within weeks, it's covered the ground. It is a ground cover plant. It tends to trail and just take up room, and it covers all your bald patches. So it's actually almost like a weed there. A beautiful weed, though, I'm sure you'll agree. But here, I just love the different color varieties it comes in, this purple. I've got the Nanook over here, down here. And the Nanook is just gorgeous with this beautiful variegated leaf in it. So let me put this back up in its home. So fast-growing plants like tradescantia and like a spider plant here, they're very thirsty. I mean, this one, I only watered yesterday. Well, no, I watered it this morning and it's already drunk. Like the water's gone, and looking at the soil, it looks like it could do with another drink. So let me hold that there so you can see. It's got a little bit of water in it, but it'll need another drink. Probably tomorrow morning I'll have to refill that. But yeah, spider plants, very thirsty. And if you don't keep on top of the watering and you let the soil grow out, it rewards you with horrible brown tips and crispy edges, and it doesn't look nice. So the fact that this one is looking gorgeous is a testament to the self-watering pot doing its job. So I have a plant that is a particularly diva, and all plant parents know it as a diva, and that's a calathea. So upstairs I have a beautiful big calathea, and this was a new one that I acquired last year, and I got it because I wanted to try Kokedama. Now, Kokedama, for those of you that don't know, is basically a moss ball. That's what it is. It's Japanese art form. But this was not very successful for two reasons. First of all, calathea like consistently moist soil. And when it's in a Kokedama, it's a little bit difficult to keep on top of the watering of it. You tend to forget. And the other thing is, moss, here, we don't have enough humidity. It's not warm enough. It's not humid enough. especially with radiators over the winter months. So this moss, as you can see, has actually died. And this kokedama has not been very successful. But I think what I'm going to do is I've managed to keep the calathea alive somehow by dunking this in moisture, in water regularly. But as you can see, there's roots coming out, and the roots are already getting crispy because they're getting too much air to them. But there's roots coming out, which tells me that this really needs to be potted on. So I'm going to pot up a calathea in a self-watering pot. And the reason being is calathea, like a lot of jungle plants, love consistently moist soil. And I'll give you points for how many times I say consistently moist in this video. But I'm going to show you how I pot it on into a self-watering pot. So the first thing I'm going to do is remove. I've got to cut through the strings that have been holding the kokedama. I just need my glasses here. Cut the strings and remove as much of the old soil away from the kokedama. So when you make a kokedama, you hold the moss in place by putting string or twine, or in this case I used cotton thread. A lot of people that make kokedama use fishing gut, but I'm not so keen on yet more microplastics in the environment, so I tend to stick to more natural things. So just cut all this away. Become quite matty. So I want to remove all this moss from the outside of it, and obviously the cotton thread. You can see the cotton thread there. Kokedama as an art form, I actually do think it's aesthetically very, very beautiful. I'm just not totally sure it works everywhere and for every person, especially if you are somebody who is a self-confessed plant killer. You know, most Saturdays I do a artisan market, and the most common thing that I hear from people is, "Oh, I kill everything. I kill plants," or their partner will say, you know, "Oh, she kills everything." So I actually have a sign up saying calling all plant killers, because I have learned that there are certain hacks and tricks and ways of keeping plants alive and well without too much fuss, because the biggest killer of houseplants is overwatering. We basically care too much. You know, you wouldn't cry if you got a bunch of flowers and a week later they were dead. You would just throw it in the bin. And a houseplant is no different. Obviously, if you got an expensive rare variety plant and you killed that, that would be quite upsetting because you've spent a fortune on it. But I think that if you try getting a spider plant, Pilea, like this one here, very easy, Pilea greggsii, and any of the pothos family, and try with them, and the tradescantia, I mean, really, it just keeps growing. So you can experiment and try new things all the time. And if it dies, you know, don't beat yourself up, just get another one. They're not expensive. Propagate. The biggest thing you can learn when you're learning to be a plant parent is to try and propagate your own plants, because you learn what works. So I've removed most of the soil and the cord, And this is actually looking all right. The roots are in fairly good condition. And I don't know if you can see here, but there are some corms. I'm going to actually, I don't even know if they're called corms or if they're called rhizomes or what they're called. But these, let me get closer up to the camera. Hope you can see this. So these here are the plant's little defense mechanism. So these hold on to moisture and nutrients. That's not. These little things here, they hold on to nutrients, they hold on to moisture, and they store it in there. And that allows the plant, so even if it were to die completely down, you could possibly just prune it, plant it up, and with care and attention, it will grow new plants out of it. So yeah, you can also see closely now what underwatering does to the calathea. You see these horrible brown spots. Now that's typical of not enough moisture in the air, not enough humidity, but also not enough moisture in the soil. So we're going to plant this up now. I've removed all that horrible soil. Let me just tidy up. So this is my own succulent. Well, it's not succulent, it's any house plant, but I mix my own soil. So this is a combination of normal houseplant soil, but I add perlite, I add coco coir, I add grit, so that you get a nice loose mix. So I'm going to put some of this in here for the calathea. But I'm also going to add some orchid bark, because calathea like a nice airy mix. So I'm putting some, so this is orchid bark. As you can see, this is really chunky. Let me come in closer there. So this is a really chunky mix, perfect for orchids. So I'm just going to mix that in with my houseplant blend and so that you end up with a really, really nice, well draining thing. Because just because the calathea like consistently moist soil doesn't mean they like it claggy and they like it heavy around their roots. They still like to breathe. So this will be perfect for this calathea. Now, these self-watering pots, and these are my favorite. Reason being is, once they're potted up, you can put them in a nice cash pot like that, and it looks gorgeous. And nobody would know. So I think if you're going to have a nursery pot, why not have one that's self-watering? So the way they work is, that's the pot. This is a wicking cord, and they come and you just put them through the holes that are provided there. There's holes that are provided. So you put them in there, and then you line up the little, there's a little spout in the cash pot at the bottom. And let me straighten that up a bit. And you put that in there, and you line those to the groove up with the little spout, so that you can easily water there. What I tend to do is I put water in a bucket or in a washing up bowl, because I've got a water butt, so I get my own water. And then I just dunk that in, let it fill up, pull it out, and put it back in the cash pot. So that's how I work it. But anyway, we'll take that off for now, because I don't want soil to go through the holes and into the pot. So I'm just going to put soil in the bottom of this pot. Right. Then I'm going to put that there. Line those two up. And then I'm going to just see, where's this calathea. Actually, before I pot this up, I'm going to trim some of these rather nasty looking leaves off. So what you want to do is, when you've got your shears or your cutters, is you want to spray a little bit of isopropyl alcohol on, because that kills any fungus spores, any bacteria. You don't want to transport or transfer or cross-contaminate from trimming one plant to another, because you don't know if you've not seen any kind of eggs for mealybugs or something like that there. No idea how mealybugs breed, but they seem to travel from plant to plant in my house. I don't think they can fly either, so I don't know how they do it. But anyway, you don't want to go and transfer a pest from one plant to another. So I'm just going to trim off some of the leaves that are looking really quite bad. And what you do is you trim it right down to the bottom, because it just looks more attractive. That's another one. Now, I'm not too worried, because plants respond positively to pruning anyway. But also, I've seen, and I don't know if you can see here, some beautiful little new growth points coming out. So this will respond very well when it's in new soil, and with the pruning as well. But on the other hand, you don't want to over prune it. Like, I'd like to remove any leaf that's got black spots, but most of them do. Not black spots, browning. But I don't want to shock the plant either. So you want to remove the worst plants, but you don't want to remove too many, because you don't want to put the plant through shock, especially a diva like Calathea. So I just want to put a little bit more soil in here. Right. And then oh, right. Hope you can see there all right. I'm new to this camera lark, so forgive me if when you see videos of me with my head half chopped off or whatever. I'm just not, that's not my skill. I'm hoping, like with plants, that with doing it more and more often, I will get better at it. Now, I really underestimated how much soil would go into this plant pot here, so I'm going to mix a bit more. Pot it up now. Now, I was talking earlier about certain plants that won't do very well in a self-watering setup, and succulents is one of them. So succulents, because they store water in their leaves, and I'm talking generally because there are certain succulents, like jungle type succulents, like a Christmas cactus, that are slightly different. But any succulents that are from drier regions, like a lot of your echeveria, a lot of your even sedums to a lesser degree, but certainly any that are huge fleshy leaves, and including all your aloes, aloe vera and what have you. If they're in a self-watering setup and that soil is moist all the time, they will rot, even if it's only slightly damp, because they like to dry out completely. Another one that might not fare too well in a self-watering setup, and it depends which one, so I'm treading carefully here, is Hoya. So I've had different kinds of Hoya. Most of them are Hoya canosa. I haven't had any of the really very varieties. I do have a Hoya Sarawak, Milwaukee Sarawak. Gorgeous Hoya. I should actually get it and show you. Give me a minute. So this is a Hoya Sarawak. Hoya Milwaukee Sarawak, I think. This has got a bit dusty. I need to actually attend to it a bit. This would hate to be in a self-watering setup, because these leaves hold on to moisture very well. So a lot of your aloes, your haworthia, your echeveria, most succulent plants would not fare well in a self-watering setup unless it was a shallow self-waterer and you were more, you really checked that the soil had dried out completely before putting your water in that reservoir. And then and you don't get the deep reservoir, you get a shallow reservoir. Let's finish this calathea. I don't want to confuse things because my channel is for new plant parents that want to learn how to keep plants alive. Because I'm very aware that there are plenty of people out there that talk about rare varieties and what have you. And I'm just here for people that get a plant from somebody and they want to keep it alive. So there's my calathea newly potted up. So let me get some water here. So I've got some, this is rainwater from my water butt outside, and it doesn't need food in it because this is fresh soil. So the soil will have plenty of food for this plant for the next 6 months. So it won't need feeding. And I just want to, now normally I wouldn't water from the top. I would just put water, make sure that the water reservoir stays full, especially in the case of a calathea. I would just keep that topped up because calathea are fussy and they don't want to dry out at all. They say that a lot of plants, let them dry out, let them dry the top inch. With calathea, I find that they don't like that that much because they like humidity as well. And the humidity comes from the soil that they're in. But you don't want it wet either. So I just water it a little bit at a time until I see the water reservoir get fuller. You can see that it's starting to get fuller and fuller. Because what will happen is, and this is another good reason why these clear self-watering pots are good, is you can see when you water, you can see how the soil goes. Now, how the water goes. Now it's moistened the top of the soil, but the bottom has stayed dry. You see that? The bottom of the pot, the soil at the bottom is stone dry. So you can water the top, but the water's not getting where the roots are. And that's where it wants it. The plant doesn't want the wet right here by the top. It wants it by the roots. So bottom watering is really a good idea for most plants anyway. But the beauty of having this is now the excess water, the water tends to drain straight through. And they talk about hydrophobic soil. This is fresh soil, so it's not hydrophobic. The water tends to just go right through and only give the top layer. The bottom of the soil doesn't get wet at all. So in order for the soil, the water then to go back up into this area here, you need to let it sit in the water, let the water sit for a while. So even if you don't have a self-watering setup, I would say best thing you can do is to bottom water all your plants because then they soak it to the bottom layers, not the top, and that's where it wants the water, is by its roots. So yeah, so what will happen now is I will stop watering this and I will let it soak up completely. Once it's soaked up from the bottom, I will then top up the water reservoir and I will leave it. And I will check it up in a week or 10 days. And that's the beauty, again, of a self-watering pot, is it gives you that grace period, because while there's water in the reservoir, it means that you're less likely to risk it drying out. It's easy to check. Now I've got this beautiful pot and I'm going to put that in there, and nobody would be the wiser. They think it's planted into that beautiful pot. And I will, again, tomorrow I will lift it out. I will just top up the reservoir only, and then I'm going to leave it for a week or two. And that should be enough moisture for this plant. And I will just touch the top of the soil now and again. If it feels dry, I will check that reservoir to see if there's water in it. And if there isn't, I'll top it up. And then in a few weeks, once new leaves start to come through, I will start to trim off these uglier leaves where they've been damaged because of underwatering. And I will give you an update on this plant in 6 months or so. But calathea are absolutely stunning, by far my favorite of all the houseplants, just because of the colors and the patterns in the leaves. I mean, how can you not love it? And I'll show you the one I've got upstairs as well. But they are known to be difficult. And I found if you can keep on top of the watering, then it's a game changer. Another couple of plants before I finish, I just wanted to show you is, this is my Thai constellation. I put this in a self-watering pot as well. Also with a nice chunky soil with lots of bark in it, because similar to the calathea, it's from more tropical climates. So this has loved it in here. However, I have a feeling I'm going to have to repot this soon because their roots are very regular. So you know that the bigger the plant gets, the bigger the roots get. So that's one. Spider plant you've seen, but this one I planted with Pilea gregsii here. I think the two look gorgeous and they're both thirsty plants. So that is a brilliant setup for them. And this I got from my children for Mother's Day. It's an azalea. Now, azalea, I don't think are typically a house plant. I got this for Mother's Day. So its leaves are toxic to rabbits. And I have a house rabbit and she's very often outside. I think actually she's outside in the rain, so I better let her in again. Yeah, I better let her in. Come on, come. Anyway, so this is toxic to rabbits, so I can't plant this outside because she might eat the leaves and then she'll perish, and I don't want that. So until I can put it outside at the front, because we're still doing work on the house, so I can't put it there yet. It's in the self-watering pot. Now, similarly, I've done quite a rich mix. I've got, what's it called? Ericaceous soil, which they like. All rhododendrons, azaleas, cliches, they all like ericaceous soil because they like it more. I think the soil is more acidy. And yeah, it loves to be consistently moist again. So I've put it in this setup until next year when we finish the front of the house, then I can pot that up and put it outside there. And she's in, so I can close the door now. Oh. I talk about plant divas, but my rabbit's also a bit of a diva, I must say. So that's my that's me finished for today. And I just encourage you to experiment with houseplants, try self-watering pots, certainly on the plants that I've recommended, and you'll see it'll make housekeeping so much easier for you, especially if you're somebody that's very busy and you don't have a lot of time or you're away a lot. Those ones with a deep reservoir, if you're away a lot, they will keep your plant hydrated for over 4 weeks, maybe even 6 weeks, maybe even a couple of months. So they really are a game changer when it comes to keeping most houseplants happy. And with that, I want to say goodbye and thank you for watching. And I hope I haven't waffled too much, as I have a tendency to do. And I wish you a lovely day. And please subscribe or like. That's always nice to see. Bye-bye.